The burner phone fell out of Brielle's purse like a smoking gun hitting marble. I watched it clatter across our pristine kitchen floor, the same floor she'd insisted cost more than most people's cars, and felt my world tilt sideways. My name is Felix Rourde, and until that Tuesday morning in March, I thought I had everything figured out. I'm 40 years old, a financial compliance officer for Henderson & Associates, which is a fancy way of saying I catch people lying about money for a living. The irony wasn't lost on me as I stared at that cheap Nokia, wondering what lies my own wife had been telling. Brielle was in the shower, humming some pop song she'd probably heard at one of her luxury events. She's 37, a successful event planner who specializes in making rich people feel even more important than they already think they are. Beautiful, sharp, always on, like she's performing for an invisible audience even when we're alone. I picked up the phone. The screen showed 17 missed calls from T and a string of text messages that made my stomach drop through the floor. Can't wait to feel you again. Hotel room is ready. Tell Felix you're at another retreat. My hands shook as I scrolled through weeks of messages. Months, actually. Explicit photos, meeting times, detailed descriptions of what they'd done and what they planned to do next. The retreat to Napa last month? She was at the Marriott downtown with this T person. The girls' weekend in Miami. Same hotel, different city. The shower stopped running. I shoved the phone back into her purse and sat down at our granite breakfast bar, trying to look normal while my marriage disintegrated in real time. Brielle emerged 20 minutes later, perfect as always. Designer workout clothes, hair styled like she was heading to a photo shoot instead of the gym. She grabbed her purse without looking at me. "I'll be late tonight," she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Client emergency." "Which client?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She paused for just a second, the kind of pause that screams guilt if you know what to listen for. "The Morrison wedding? Disaster with the flowers?" I nodded and smiled. "Hope you can fix it." She kissed my cheek, a quick peck that felt like a business transaction. "You know I always do." After she left, I sat in our living room, our showcase living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that cost more than my first car, and started laughing. Not happy laughter, the kind that bubbles up when you realize you've been the punchline of a joke for months. I called my office and told them I was taking a personal day. Rita, my assistant, could hear something in my voice. "Everything okay, Felix?" "Just need to handle some compliance issues at home." That afternoon, I did what I do best. I followed the money. Our joint accounts showed cash withdrawals I'd never noticed before. Always small amounts, always from ATMs near hotels I'd never been to. Credit card statements revealed charges at restaurants I'd never heard of, lingerie stores where she'd never worn anything for me. I'm good at finding patterns. It's what I do for a living, and the pattern here was clear. My wife had been systematically lying to me for at least 6 months, probably longer. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, though that felt like swallowing broken glass. The worst part was how stupid I felt. I catch financial fraud for a living, and I couldn't see the fraud happening in my own home. My phone buzzed. Text from Brielle. "Working late, don't wait up." I looked at the timestamp. 6:47 p.m. Her phone was probably already turned off, tucked away somewhere while she met T at whatever hotel they'd chosen tonight. I poured myself 3 fingers of the whiskey she'd bought me for my birthday, probably with money from our joint account, and started planning. Because here's the thing about compliance work. It teaches you patience. It teaches you to gather evidence. And it teaches you that the best way to catch someone is to let them think they're getting away with it. My sister-in-law, Maris, called around 9. "How are you holding up?" she asked without preamble. "What do you mean?" "Felix, I'm a therapist. I can hear it in your voice. Plus, Brielle's been acting strange for months. Even Mom noticed at Christmas." I told her about the phone, the messages, the financial evidence. Maris listened without interrupting, which is probably why she's good at her job. What are you going to do? She asked when I finished. I'm going to be very, very careful, I said. And then I'm going to make sure she understands exactly what compliance means. The next morning, Brielle came home at 7 a.m. with coffee and croissants from our usual place, acting like she'd been working all night instead of doing whatever she'd been doing with tea. You're up early, she said, settling next to me on the couch. Couldn't sleep. I accepted the coffee and croissant, playing the role of concerned husband. Everything okay with the Morrison wedding? Oh, you know how it is. Crisis averted. She stretched like a cat, and I noticed a small bruise on her collarbone that definitely wasn't there yesterday morning. Good thing you were there to handle it? She looked at me sharply, but I kept my expression neutral. After 15 years in compliance, I've learned to hide what I'm thinking. That afternoon, I met Maris at her office. She's 35, 5 years younger than Brielle, and everything her sister isn't. Where Brielle is all surface shine, Maris cuts straight to the bone. She has her own therapy practice downtown, specializes in marriage counseling, which made this conversation particularly surreal. I hired a private investigator, I told her. Felix, nothing illegal, just surveillance. I need documentation if this goes to divorce court. Maris leaned back in her chair. You know what's funny? Brielle used to complain about you to me, said you were boring, predictable, said you never surprised her. I'm about to surprise the hell out of her. What do you need from me? Information. You know her friends, her habits, and I might need a place to stay when this all comes out. She nodded slowly. There's something else you should know, about tea. My stomach clenched. You know who it is? Theodore Voss. Teddy. He's a real estate developer, married, 2 kids. He and his wife Jennifer are clients of mine, or were, until he started missing appointments. I knew the name. Voss Development had been in the news lately, some controversy about city contracts and political donations, the kind of guy who thought rules were suggestions. How long have you known? I suspected for a while. Brielle mentioned him too often, and Jennifer started talking about Teddy working late, taking mysterious calls. Maris shook her head. I couldn't say anything without violating confidentiality, but now that you know, now I can do something about it. That evening, I followed Brielle. She said she was meeting a client at the Four Seasons for a wedding consultation. Instead, she drove to a boutique hotel in the Arts District and met a man in the lobby. Tall, silver-haired, expensive suit. He kissed her like they'd been doing it for years. I took pictures from across the street, feeling like a character in a bad movie. But this was my life now, surveillance and evidence gathering and watching my marriage end in real time. They went upstairs. I waited in my car for 3 hours, listening to talk radio and wondering how I'd gotten here. When they came back down, they were laughing about something. Brielle looked happier than I'd seen her in months. The investigator I'd hired called the next day with more details. Theodore Teddy Voss, 42, married to Jennifer for 16 years. His company was leveraged to the eyeballs, and he had a reputation for cutting corners, also a reputation for affairs, though he'd been careful about it until now. Your wife isn't his first, the investigator told me, but she might be his most serious. My sources say he's been talking about leaving his wife. What about Brielle? She's been telling her friends she's unhappy, says her husband is boring, doesn't understand her ambitions. I hung up and stared at our wedding photo on my desk. We looked so young, so sure of ourselves. I remembered thinking I was the luckiest man alive. My friend Nash called that afternoon. We'd known each other since college, and he'd gone into private security after leaving the police force. He had the kind of contacts that could be useful in situations like this. I heard through the grapevine that you might need some help, he said. Maris told you? Maris told my girlfriend, who told me. You know how it works. Nash's voice got serious. What do you need? Right now? Just someone to watch my back. This Teddy guy has money and connections. If he decides I'm a problem, Say no more. I'll keep an eye on things. That weekend, Brielle announced she was going to a spa retreat in Scottsdale with her friend Mimi. Girls' weekend, she said, packing expensive lingerie I'd never seen before. We need some sister time. I helped her carry her bags to the car, kissed her goodbye, told her to have fun. Then I called the investigator. She's not going to Scottsdale, he confirmed 2 hours later. Teddy Voss just checked into the Ritz-Carlton in Half Moon Bay, penthouse suite. While my wife was playing house with her boyfriend, I spent the weekend going through our finances with a fine-tooth comb. Joint accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios, everything we'd built together over 8 years of marriage. I also spent time researching Theodore Voss, his business dealings, his social circle, his weaknesses. If Brielle thought she was trading up, she was about to learn that her new boyfriend had problems of his own. By Sunday night, I had a plan. Not just for the divorce, for something more comprehensive. Something that would make both of them understand that actions have consequences. Brielle came home Sunday evening glowing and relaxed, full of stories about the spa and how refreshed she felt. She even initiated closeness for the first time in months, which felt like the cruelest joke of all. Afterward, while she slept, I lay awake staring at the ceiling and thinking about compliance. In my job, compliance isn't just about following rules, it's about creating systems that prevent people from breaking them in the first place. It's about consequences that are swift, certain, and proportional to the violation. My wife and her boyfriend were about to get a masterclass in compliance. Monday morning, I started the process of protecting myself financially. I couldn't touch our joint assets without her knowledge, but I could document everything and start preparing for the legal battle ahead. I also did something else. I started making friends. Mimi Hartwell, Brielle's best friend and partner in crime, turned out to be surprisingly easy to manipulate. She worked in public relations and loved gossip more than oxygen. Over lunch at an upscale restaurant she'd suggested, I played the concerned husband. I'm worried about Brielle, I told her, cutting into my overpriced salmon. She seems distant lately, stressed. Mimi's eyes lit up. She lived for drama, especially when she could position herself as the wise confidant. Oh, honey, she's been going through something, Mimi said, leaning forward conspiratorially. All this pressure with work, and she's been questioning everything. Her marriage, her choices, whether she's living up to her potential. Has she mentioned anything specific? Well, Mimi glanced around like we were discussing state secrets. She's been spending time with that developer, Teddy Voss. You know, from the charity circuit? She says it's just business, but I've seen them together, Felix, and it doesn't look like business to me. I let my face fall, played the devastated husband discovering his worst fears. How long? A few months, maybe? Look, I probably shouldn't have said anything, but you deserve to know. Brielle's my friend, but what she's doing isn't right. By the end of lunch, Mimi had given me a complete timeline of the affair, including details about hotels, restaurants, and even some of the things Brielle had said about me. Apparently, I was emotionally unavailable and didn't appreciate her ambitions. That evening, I confronted Brielle. Not about the affair, not yet. About something smaller, more manageable. I ran into Jim Morrison today, I said over dinner. He mentioned the wedding went off without a hitch, said there were no problems with the flowers at all. Brielle froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. What? The Morrison wedding? Last week? You said there was a crisis with the flowers. Oh, that? She recovered quickly. It was resolved before the wedding. Jim probably didn't even know there was a problem. I took another bite of pasta. He also mentioned they haven't hired an event planner yet. Said they were still interviewing candidates. This time, Brielle couldn't hide her panic. He must have been confused, or maybe he meant a different Morrison. Maybe. I smiled at her. I'm sure you're right. But the seed was planted. She knew I was paying attention now, asking questions. For the first time in months, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. The next day, I had lunch with Nash at a sports bar downtown. He'd been doing some investigating of his own. "Your boy Teddy has problems," he told me, sliding a folder across the table. "His company's in trouble, 3 projects behind schedule, cost overruns on everything, and the city's investigating some of his permit applications." I flipped through the documents: financial statements, newspaper clippings, building inspection reports. It painted a picture of a man living beyond his means and cutting corners to maintain his lifestyle. "There's more," Nash said. "He's been borrowing against his house, and his wife's been asking friends about divorce lawyers. Word is she knows about the affairs." "Affairs, plural?" "Your wife's not his first rodeo. Guy's got a pattern. Finds married women, usually ones with some money or connections, promises them the world, then moves on when things get complicated." I closed the folder. "What's your read on him?" "Typical rich boy bully, all swagger until someone pushes back. Then he folds like a cheap suit." "Good to know." That weekend, Brielle announced another spa trip. This time, I was ready. While she was packing, I installed tracking software on her phone. Software that was completely legal since we shared the same account, and I was listed as the account administrator. I also placed a GPS tracker in her car, another perfectly legal move since both our names were on the registration. "Have fun at the spa," I told her, kissing her cheek. "You deserve some relaxation." 2 hours after she left, my phone buzzed with a location alert. She was at Teddy's house in Pacific Heights. I drove over and parked across the street. It was a massive Victorian, probably worth $5 million, with a perfect view of the bay. Teddy's Tesla was in the driveway next to Brielle's BMW. I sat there for an hour, taking pictures and thinking about my next move. Then I saw something that changed everything. A woman in the upstairs window, watching Brielle and Teddy in the garden below. She looked angry, hurt, and very familiar. Jennifer Voss, Teddy's wife, the woman who'd been seeing Maris for marriage counseling. I called Maris. "Is Jennifer Voss still your client?" "Felix, you know I can't. I'm sitting outside their house right now. Jennifer's upstairs watching her husband with my wife. I think she might need someone to talk to." Long pause. "I'll make some calls." An hour later, Jennifer Voss came out of the house, got in her Range Rover, and drove away. Brielle and Teddy didn't even notice. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this Felix Rourde?" Woman's voice shaky but determined. "Yes. This is Jennifer Voss. I think we need to talk." Jennifer Voss turned out to be nothing like I'd expected. Instead of the pampered socialite wife, I found a sharp, angry woman who'd been documenting her husband's affairs for years. We met at a coffee shop in the Mission, far from the social circles where we might be recognized. She was 40, attractive in an understated way, with the kind of quiet strength that comes from enduring disappointment without breaking. "I know about your wife," she said without preamble. "I've known for months." "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was gathering evidence for my own divorce." She pulled out a tablet and showed me photos, bank statements, credit card records. "Teddy thinks he's clever, but he's actually quite predictable." The documentation was impressive. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, even photos of Teddy and Brielle together at various locations around the city. Jennifer had been building a case that would destroy her husband financially. "The prenup protects most of his assets," she explained, "but infidelity voids those protections. With this evidence, I can take half of everything, plus alimony." "What do you need from me?" "Testimony, corroboration, and maybe—" She hesitated. "Maybe we could coordinate our approaches, make sure they both understand what they've lost." I liked Jennifer immediately. She had the same methodical approach I did, the same appreciation for thorough preparation. We spent 2 hours comparing notes and developing a strategy. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of confronting them directly, we would systematically dismantle the fantasy they'd built together. Strip away the romance and excitement. Replace it with consequences and embarrassment. Teddy hates being embarrassed, Jennifer told me. His whole identity is built on being successful, admired, in control. Take that away, and he falls apart. What about Brielle? Your wife is performing for an audience. She wants to be seen as sophisticated, successful, making smart choices. Show that audience what she's really doing, and the performance becomes impossible to maintain. We started small. Jennifer had a friend who worked at the society page of the local newspaper. A few carefully placed items about Teddy's business troubles, his permit problems, his financial difficulties. Nothing libelous, just facts presented in an unflattering light. I worked my own angles. Mimi, eager to be involved in the drama, started spreading carefully crafted gossip about Brielle's new friend and how it was affecting her work. Other event planners in the city began hearing whispers about Brielle's reliability, her professionalism, her judgment. Meanwhile, I continued my financial preparations. I couldn't hide assets, but I could protect myself. I moved my personal accounts to a different bank, updated my will, and consulted with a divorce attorney about California's community property laws. The attorney, Patricia Chen, was everything I needed. Smart, ruthless, and experienced with high-conflict divorces. The key is documentation, she told me. California is a no-fault state, so the affair itself won't affect property division. But if we can show financial misconduct, money spent on the affair that should have been community property, we can recover those funds. I showed her the evidence I'd gathered. Hotel bills paid with our joint credit card, cash withdrawals that corresponded with affair dates, even the cost of the lingerie Brielle had bought for her weekend getaways. This is good, Patricia said. We can probably recover $15,000 to $20,000 in misappropriated funds. Plus, if she's been lying about her income or hiding assets, we can go after those too. But money wasn't really the point anymore. The point was making sure Brielle and Teddy understood that actions have consequences. The first real blow came 3 weeks later. Teddy's biggest project, a luxury condo development in Soma, was shut down by the city for permit violations. The story made the front page of the business section, complete with quotes from city officials about corners being cut and safety concerns. Jennifer texted me, "Phase 1 complete. How's your end going?" My end was going perfectly. Brielle had lost 2 major clients in the past week, both citing scheduling conflicts that were really about the whispers following her around the industry. She was stressed, defensive, working longer hours to compensate. "Everything okay at work?" I asked her over dinner. "Fine," she snapped. "Just some difficult clients. Nothing I can't handle." But I could see the cracks forming. The confident, in-control Brielle was being replaced by someone anxious and uncertain. Someone who was starting to realize that her perfect affair might not be so perfect after all. That weekend, she didn't go to a spa. She stayed home, pacing around the apartment, checking her phone constantly. "Teddy's dealing with some business problems," she finally admitted. "I'm worried about him." "I'm sure he'll figure it out," I said. "Successful guys like him always land on their feet." She looked at me sharply, but I kept my expression neutral. Inside, I was smiling. The end came faster than I'd expected. Jennifer moved first, filing for divorce on a Tuesday morning and immediately freezing all of Teddy's accounts. By noon, the story was all over social media. Prominent developer's wife files for divorce, cites irreconcilable differences and financial misconduct. Teddy panicked. He called Brielle 17 times that day, begging her to meet him, to help him figure out what to do. She left work early and spent the afternoon at his house, trying to comfort him while his world collapsed. I knew because I was watching. Not just me. Jennifer had hired her own investigator, and we were coordinating our surveillance. Every meeting, every phone call, every desperate conversation was documented. That evening, Brielle came home looking shell-shocked. "Did you hear about Teddy Voss?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "The developer?" Something about a divorce? His wife left him, just like that, out of nowhere, froze all his accounts, took the kids to her mother's house. Brielle shook her head. I feel so bad for him. Why do you feel bad for him? She caught herself. I mean, I feel bad for anyone going through a divorce. It must be terrible. I'm sure it is. 2 days later, I made my move. I filed for divorce and had Brielle served at her office, in front of her remaining clients and staff. The papers cited irreconcilable differences and included a detailed accounting of every dollar she'd spent on her affair. She called me screaming. How could you do this to me, at work, in front of everyone? The same way you could lie to me for 6 months, I said calmly. Actions have consequences, Brielle. We can work this out. We can go to counseling, figure this out together. I don't think so. Felix, please. I made a mistake, but it's over now. Teddy and I, it's complicated, but I want to save our marriage. I almost laughed. It's over because his wife took half his money and he can't afford you anymore. Silence on the other end of the line. I know about the affair, Brielle. I've known for weeks. I know about the hotels, the trips, the money you spent on lingerie and dinners and weekend getaways. I know about all of it. Felix, I also know that you've been telling people I'm boring, that I don't understand your ambitions, that you deserve better. Well, congratulations. You're about to get exactly what you deserve. I hung up. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and paperwork and asset division. Brielle tried everything. Tears, anger, seduction, threats. She promised to end things with Teddy, to go to counseling, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But it was too late. The trust was gone, and more than that, I'd realized something important. I didn't want her back. The woman I'd married, or thought I'd married, had never really existed. The real Brielle was someone who could lie to my face for months, who could spend our money on her affair, who could mock me to her friends while sleeping in our bed. Teddy, meanwhile, was falling apart. His business was in shambles, his wife had taken him to the cleaners in their divorce, and the social circles that had once welcomed him were now whispering about his affairs and financial problems. He started calling Brielle constantly, desperate and needy in a way that ruined whatever romance they'd once shared. He's not handling this well, Brielle told me during one of our awkward conversations about dividing our belongings. The stress is really getting to him. That's what happens when you build your life on lies, I said. Eventually, reality catches up. The final confrontation came a month later. I was packing the last of my things from our apartment, our former apartment since I'd managed to get my name removed from the lease, when Brielle showed up. She looked terrible. Thinner, hollow-eyed, like she hadn't been sleeping. The polished, confident woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone fragile and desperate. I get it now, she said, standing in our empty living room. I can't live without you. I made a terrible mistake. But I understand now what I threw away. Please, Felix, give me another chance. Before I could answer, Maris stepped out of the bedroom, smiling coldly. Then you'll have to learn, she said. Brielle's face went white. Maris, what are you doing here? I'm helping Felix move, Maris said calmly, and I wanted to make sure you understood something important. What? That actions have consequences, that you can't treat people like disposable objects and expect them to be there when you finally decide you need them. Brielle looked back and forth between us, finally understanding. Are you two? We're friends, I said. Something you and I never really were. Felix, please. The divorce papers were signed yesterday, Maris said. Felix has moved on, emotionally and legally. Whatever you thought you could come back to doesn't exist anymore. Brielle started crying then, not the pretty tears she'd used to try to manipulate me over the past month, but ugly, desperate sobs. The sound of someone finally understanding what they'd lost. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I know you are, I said, but sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back the months of lies or the humiliation or the trust you destroyed." She stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face, looking around our empty apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "What am I supposed to do now?" she asked. "You figure it out," Maris said, "the same way Felix had to figure it out when you abandoned him for your affair." Brielle left without another word. I watched her walk down the hallway, shoulders shaking, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no lingering love or anger, just the quiet relief of a chapter finally ending. "You okay?" Maris asked. "Yeah," I said, and realized I meant it. I really am. 6 months later, I heard through Mimi that Brielle had moved back in with her parents and was working for a small event planning company in Sacramento. Teddy had declared bankruptcy and moved to Phoenix to start over. His ex-wife, Jennifer, had remarried and was living very comfortably on her divorce settlement. As for me, I bought a smaller place in the Mission, got a promotion at work, and started dating again. Nothing serious yet, but I was open to possibilities in a way I hadn't been for years. The best part was the quiet. No more performances, no more lies, no more walking on eggshells around someone who saw me as an obstacle to their happiness. Just the peaceful satisfaction of a life built on honesty and mutual respect. Compliance, it turns out, isn't just about following rules. It's about creating a life where the rules actually matter, where actions have consequences, and where trust means something real. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, but I'd learned it completely.